Did it go away, or do you guys still see it? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, well, you know, that's like just your opinion, man.
Well, hello and welcome to the Audio Opinion Show, where audio people gather and share their opinions about audio things, because that sounds like a great idea for a super popular show. You know, I've hung out on a lot of job sites, a lot of show sites, and every single time the audio person starts to tell everyone how they feel about things, people gather. It's
eyes were
like
rolled.
It's like
ever.
no, everybody just gathers, and it's like, oh, what does the guru have to say? So we gather as many gurus to share exactly what we actually think about all of these things. So I'm joined by some of my older friends, some of my newer friends, some of my in-between friends. I think we're mostly all like live soundy people. We lost Jeff, maybe he'll come back. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the thing. I am joined by my co-host Andy Broughton from the great state of Canada. It's a state, right? Isn't
Sure.
Canada one of our states?
51st, you bet.
Yeah.
Stop
Okay.
picking fights, eh?
What? Go ahead, Foley.
DC's the 51st state. Puerto Rico's the 52nd, so Canada could be 53rd.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, Foley's not going to concede anything too easily on the whole 51st state thing. Apparently, DC has a bit of a toot about it. So taxation, representation, something. Anyway, all right, let's roll this fabulous thing. We're going to start off with our first poll, which tells us how to do polls. That's basically the point of it. But this one is the most important question of the night. And the most important question of the night, I'm going to launch that poll. Everyone gets to vote. The most important question: why is there no Princess Bride question this week? This is the question. You can make multiple choices. So why is there no Princess Bride question this week? I am reading this for the sake of our YouTube viewers who can't see the poll. Answer number one is Saturday. Answer number two is Brian is lazy. Answer number three, because. And answer number four, Wallace Shawn. So again, for review, answers are Saturday, Brian is lazy, because, and Wallace Shawn. I don't get a vote because I'm just the lowly host. And I don't think I gave, no, I think, Andy, you still have a vote, don't you?
I voted, yep.
Excellent. All right, so I think the votes are well tallied and well end. I will end the poll. I will share the results, and it would appear that the answer, as is often the case with the Princess Bride question, is Wallace Shawn. So thank you to Wallace Shawn for being the most popular answer at all times. So, although because on Saturday, I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit. Brian is lazy got the least amount of votes, which just means that people don't know me very well.
We all love you. We all love you, Brian. Wouldn't insult you to your face.
Big giant liars. All right, so let's actually figure out what our topic's going to be so we can talk all silly audio stuff. So what's our topic for the day? I'm going to launch this thing and I'll read off. What's our topic for the day? Some of these we just haven't picked from before, so they came up again. Number one, what is your favorite audio pet peeve? What is the thing that grinds your gears? Number two, what's the most rewarding thing about working in audio? Number three, is there a mixing in the cloud future for audio? And number four, is remote mixing a thing that will actually happen in the audio? I really meant in audio. I apparently have problems with the grammar and the
audio
typing.
world.
In the audio world. Okay, thank you.
The
I just
audio
left out
continuum.
world. In the audio continuum. It's possible I was multitasking. So I've only got 5 votes in, 6, 7. We're getting there. I just noticed after 47 of these shows that it actually tallies how many there are there right in front of me. I don't have to actually add it up in my head.
It's just something of something, does it not?
It does, as a matter of fact. All right. So we have 10 votes in. I see 10 people on screen. I don't get to vote. So that means somebody who's not on screen is voting, which is fine. Anyway, 10 votes are in. Here we go. This one's actually kind of one of my favorite things. The thing is, what is your favorite audio pet peeve? Audio pet peeve. What is a thing that grinds your, it can be people, it can be a thing, it can be Joe Foley, which in my case it quite often is. It can be virtually a client thing, anything. Does anybody feel like they want to immediately begin by showing what grind? Go ahead, Joe Foley. Fred, I'll go right to you next because you seem to also instantly had a response.
I find people who endlessly quote theory when on job sites and in the field to be a major pet peeve of mine. And I love the textbook theory, and I love the concept of the science and the research that someone has done in a lab. But then when we get on site and that doesn't quite mesh up with the physics of the site we're in or the realities of the world that we actually live in, I just love when people sit there and go, well, but according to this textbook I read, and they go, cool, we're here now.
Science denier.
It's all a hoax. Science is all a hoax.
So
Bob
yeah, so
McCarthy
that's
out. Bob McCarthy is out to fool us all. He's trying to put microchips in our brain.
so basically that's my takeaway, is that Joe thinks that knowledge and actually knowing things is a thing that we shouldn't bother with. That's what I heard. That's what I heard him say. So
I heard him say the more general idea of read the room. You know, is it an appropriate place to talk about these things?
No. That was clearly flip the switch and go to 11. That was what that was.
And don't get me wrong, like in a educational context, in a like design level context, I'm all about theory. But when we're on site and shading that line array box is actually going to give us a better outcome than keeping the true line array theory of everything is equal and everything is the same, and technically the line array shouldn't even be curved, like, because that breaks the theory. Like in reality, that doesn't always work out the way we want it to work out, and we accept that it is not a pure theoretical thing in real life.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's so much to be said for the difference between what happens in the lab and what happens in actual real life, and the fact that what we do is an endless array, no pun intended, of compromises, and basically nothing that we do ultimately fits within a nice little scientific box. But yeah,
and most of the time what we're doing is trying to keep the lighting guy from yelling at us so much. Can you move that? Can you move that? Can you move that? Can you move that?
If you
it's the other way. I go to lighting and say, can you move that? Can you move that? And generally they're okay with it.
Wow.
If we just gaff tape flashlights to all of our antennas and whatnot, they won't even notice.
It doesn't have to be a fight. You can make friends with them, and then it goes much more smoothly.
It's always friendly, of course. But
well, I'm friendly. For the first 4 times, they scrape my eyeballs with the blinders, and by the 5th time, we're going to have it's going to be okay. One more time, and then it's okay. Pink noise at 1:15, and I'm going to lunch. Like that's. So if we're talking about pet peeves, there we go. There's one of my little, don't scrape my eyeballs repeatedly with the stupid.
I've got a pet peeve I'd like to get out of the way because no one else is going to feel this way. But as the administrator and moderator of a sound forum.
Which one would that be, Mac?
Yeah.
Feel free to advertise.
Pro Sound Web.
Oh, I've been there.
People who abbreviate the company who made the 1/6A compressor with capital letters. Drives me batshit. There are no capital letters in DBX. It.
Wow.
I
That's
very
very
love this
specific.
pet peeve so
That
much.
was really granular.
I
Wow.
love
Holy
this so
cow.
much. I can't begin to tell you how much I love this because this is absolutely the essence of a pet peeve. Completely silly and unnecessary, and yet makes you crazy. That's
makes me
freaking
crazy.
hilarious.
Wow. It reminds me of the one where people can't spell the word Clark Technic properly.
Right.
You know, that's sort of, or Sennheiser, you know, these are words that are from another language and people just can't comprehend the idea that something might be spelled differently in another country. Might be similar, but different.
Well,
But
that goes for a large part of the American lexicon, which is spelled totally incorrectly compared with the original English.
I feel like you could have just stopped with which is spelled totally incorrectly.
Yeah, I guess you
How's
got a
that
few
going
things
for all the
spelled
tea?
differently. What's that?
How's that going for all the tea?
All the tea.
Swimmingly.
Fred, you had a your hand
I
up
actually
earlier?
have two. I have two.
Right.
People who can't wrap a cable properly, and people who don't know the color code, whether it's the resistor color code or the telephone color code. It just, when you try to work with people who don't understand those things, you have lots of problems.
Is there a steel color code? I've asked people this. Is it an official color coding for lengths of steel? Or is it just one of those things that each company has their own color coding?
You're
Anybody
talking
know?
about like a stinger?
Yeah, you know, 5 foot, 10 foot, these sort of things. Is there an
Unfortunately,
official color code for that?
Officially, I don't think there is. I think everyone just kind of makes it up as they go along,
That's what I thought.
unfortunately.
I think a
Much
lot
the
of
same.
companies do it the
That's
same.
in power, though,
yeah.
right? You're talking about power.
No, talking
Oh.
about just steel. Sorry,
Like rigging
Rigging,
hardware.
rigging steel.
Oh, okay. I was talking about audio snakes and
I know.
telephone cable or fiber cable.
But it's still the same. You know, the whole length color code thing has bugged me for a very long time because there's a right way, which is to use resistor color code, and then there's so many different wrong ways, and it just feels like so many people choose so many of the different wrong ways. I would be okay if they all chose the same wrong way.
Mm.
I might
Because
even
then it would
come
be the
over
right way.
because exactly then it's like then I may be willing to go with your wrong way in order to go with the majority. But no, it's just a whole bunch of other different. My good buddy Bill Mills, who probably will hear this at some point, his main color code was based on red, white, and blue when he first started. And so 25 footers were red and 50 footers were white and 100 footers were blue. And then he got 10
See, when I
footers.
grew up, 25 footers were red, 50 footers were blue, 100 footers were white.
Well, and then he got 10 footers and it was like, well, I'll make those yellow, and then he got 6 footers and it's like, well, I guess I'll make those, I don't know, orange. And then it was like, and then it's just, and that was 35 years ago. So now he's got an entire shop.
I'm not so
full of-
sensitive to it as long as when you open the cable trunk, inside the lid, it tells you what the color code is.
Not a bad way to go.
And I adopted the PRG color code because it was so prevalent between PRG, 4-wall, and a bunch of other companies. That said, you go to New York and look at all the Broadway houses, PRG is one way. Mask and Sound Associates, I believe, are the same, a different direction. And then you go to like OSA, who I'm out here working for, and they have their own color code. And it's just like, at a certain point, everyone's going to do their thing a little bit differently. And the fact that the Kennedy Center here in DC's color code and PRG's color code are very similar, but like a couple of colors are flip-flopped, screws up everyone in DC because they either think one or the other.
And again, I was talking about multi-channel audio. So cable, It's a free for all out there as far as single audio cable, who's going to have what kind of deal. But yeah, and I'm talking about hooking up DTs. You know, you're at the truck and you're plugging stuff in, and your A2's plugging stuff on the other end. He doesn't know what the color code is, and I go, here's a list 1 through 12. And when it comes up, you blow up something because he plugged something in that shouldn't have had a voltage.
It's nice to have numbers on them as well.
As a backup.
Well, and I came up with a company that did resistor color code for everything that had to do with numbers. And to me, it was just like, okay, this is a standard. It exists. And it pre-exists us for all intents and purposes. It is adaptable to anything. You know, you have a 137 foot cable. Well, you can put 3 little bands on that say 137 feet. It's not, it's, you know, you have a 52 pair, you have a this pair, you have like, you can, yeah, maybe it's a couple more band, maybe it's, but no matter what, weird thing happens down the road. If you grab it off the shelf, once you know the codes, you're like, oh, this is a 127 foot cable. That's weird, but okay.
You guys use feet? So you can save yourself a stripe if you just.
But once you're 3 digits into a color code, isn't it the same difference at that point just to use a numeric system since you're already reading out 3 different? I mean, yeah, and if the numbers are all the way around, I mean, once it's that complex, you're.
Well, I think the reason I like the resistor color code is, for the most part, the things that I just mentioned are the outliers. For the most part, you know, you're dealing with 20, 40, 60, you know, and a 2 on the cable, and I can tell it's not a 2-foot cable, it's a 20-foot cable, or it's a 200-foot cable. Like, these 3 things I can differentiate very easily if it says a 2 on it, close enough. But the nice thing is that if you use some sort of color code that, you know, has 9 different colors or 9 different colors that do, you know, 9 different numbers, 10 different numbers, decimal. I don't know how we do numbers. I don't know how this works. Binary. We should do everything in binary from now on. So it's just black and white. You just go doop, 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 doop.
That will leave the cables perfectly prepared when our machine overlords take over and do the job for us.
I think you'll need a scanner and an AI assistant. Yeah.
See, they are getting robot umpires in one of the minor leagues this year.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. And I'm so happy Joe West has retired.
I believe I just came up with go ahead.
I just came up with a marketing idea. You could build into it we all run around backstage and drink set up with headlights on our. If you could build a little scanner into that, you could have all the cables coded that way, and it would just call out the cable link for you when you hold it up. Whoops.
Well, and Elon's just announced the whole implant that goes straight in your brain that interfaces with the computer. So that's that with the scanner.
Well, you wouldn't need the scanner. You've got 2 already. Theoretically, it just needs to be able to.
They just need to be able to read
that feed
QR codes.
I think the new Midas, when you plug in a cable, it says that's a 25-foot cable.
Right.
You've seen the AI on the new HD.
And we're going to need even more IT guys on the job, though, because that's all going to break down, and it'll never be the right IP addresses, and everyone's head will be on the same channel together and be plugging in 25s everywhere at the same time at the same moment.
The inventory control software that I used to use had an upgraded option where they would come in and install an RFID arch around your loading dock, so that as gear rolled on and off the truck, it would count it all in, and you had to buy little crimp-on RFIDs for every cable, and then you can just scan it with your phone, right? And it'll tell you what it is.
How's that work?
But if it's still wrapped around like this, it's not going to come off nice at the end of the day.
Right.
I have seen, thankfully, because then I don't have to be obtuse about who it was, because I've forgotten who it was, but there was a shop I worked with that had done that to everything, including cables. And we, all of us who have worked live shows, can figure out how long the tags lasted on the cables. If I'm remembering correctly, they were even, foolish enough as to put the tag right next to the female end of the XLR connector, which meant instantly they were just snip, 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 right. Snip. This is going away.
Yeah, nothing goes to the female end.
dear.
Best laid plans.
What is that? Your mic's off there, Joe.
Joe, you're out. Joe, your mic's off. And I desperately want to hear what you have to say. Said no one ever.
So the thing about all the RFID tags I've ever seen is that they're like a thing this size hanging off of a tiny little cable.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got like a 1/8 inch to RCA. It's like this long, and it's got an RFID tag on it that's as long as the cable. It's just, yeah. I don't know. I feel sorry for company owners. I'm glad that I never went down the gear path, said the guy who bought a CL3. But because the whole inventory control thing, like I know, Joe, it's just like got to be a freaking nightmare just to try to keep track of like, and your company's not big in the sense of, like 40 guys out there loading trucks. I just don't. I don't even know.
40 guys I could probably train. It's the business partners that you can't train. That just.
Who is it you're referring to?
Right. Is Dave listening in?
And does DC listen to this show? Because if he doesn't, he's going to now when I send him the link.
Mm-hmm.
I've invited him multiple times.
You need to pick on someone else.
Ed Willock, what's your favorite pet peeve? Because I know generally you won't. He's so nice, he won't interrupt anybody. So I have to like call on him at some point.
It's just you guys are just gut busting over here. So it's I'd rather just take it all in and absorb. Audio pet peeves, man.
You've had 25 minutes to think about it.
Yeah, you know what? No, so what bugs me, I guess, is more the chatter in audio forums and groups, and how often you hear the same wrong answer. Or, well, I guess I'm reading them mostly when they're on forums. Like for example, like the Dante forums, for example, I'm going to pick on Dante for a minute, and those groups. No matter what problem somebody has, it's like 0.002 seconds before someone says IGMP, QoS, and they have no idea what those mean. They took the Dante class and heard those terms, and that's the problem to everything. And it's just
it's snooping. It's snooping.
Right. Oh, did you check the auto? What is it? The EEE, the green thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, your triple E, or you have the wrong courier, and it's rampant in all of these kinds of groups, and it makes it very. I think it just the reason it's pet peeve is again because I do the the AV Tech Talks, and I'm big on trying to educate people, and it makes it very hard for not people like us who have a ton of experience, but the people who are new, who are actually looking for answers, they have to now kind of weed through 100 people who are giving the wrong answer. So I guess it's just, people who will talk when they don't know what they don't know and give answers as if they're like, they've got the right answer and very authoritative.
And they want to be first,
But they're certified.
This is why Facebook sucks and PSW rules. PSW used to have lots of people on there. I don't know if they do anymore, but there used to be lots of people just shut you down harshly if you said something wrong. And I loved that. It was the idea that you said something stupid, I'm going to tell you off.
Those days are largely gone.
Yeah. But back in the day.
But your point, Ed, is like, I'm only jumping on it only because I've got so many peeves, but it may be clearly in my top 5. Yeah. It's the signal to noise problem, which is ironic. That's right. Ultimately that's what it comes down to. It's like there is so much noise, and I guess the best way to think of it is, for me, it's like you have Eric Clapton, whatever, fill in great guitar player for you that you like, that is awesome, and then 99 garage hacks and they're all on the same stage at the same time with the same amplifier, all turned up to 11, all playing at the same, and you're like, somewhere in there, Clapton is playing, but I can't get to it because I can't, and they're all dressed the same, and they all have the same swagger, and they all look the same because, and like one of them is Eric Clapton, and the other 99 are like, you know, I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. Like
it's the Where's Waldo of finding information. You have to really look hard and hope you get the right one. But
if only there was a way to qualify people before they speak, you know.
And I know, as somebody who, like, I like to be helpful, and I like to you know, there are a few things people ask that I actually know the answer to. And I like to be the one who can, like, help them, guide them to the answer. And after the first, like, dozen times of trying to fight through all the noise, you know, and then you feel like, well, now I feel like I have to share my entire resume so that you'll listen to me. And then I feel stupid. Like, am I really, like, flexing on Facebook? Is this the thing I want to do with my life? Like,
you have to argue with the people that don't know, and they feel that they're just as much an authority as you are. And
right.
It's clearly
and
a subject that you know the most about.
I mean, I know I was on Facebook with Joe McGrath the one time, and, like, he said something stupid. I don't know what it was.
Every time.
Sounds like
Don't
the Mark
hold back,
Twain
Ryan.
never argue with an idiot thing comes into play there somewhere.
Am I the idiot here?
Wanna be?
I guess my
Your
mic
mic is
still
live,
on.
though.
So
Like,
yeah, let's
wait
do
a-
it. No,
talk.
so
like, wait a minute.
all right. Well, let's move it on. Let's do the next pet peeve. Mine personally would be like QLab and Playback Pro techs that don't normalize audio tracks. Just getting a crap ton of different bumpers and stingers at different levels throughout whatever show, broadcast, whatever you're doing.
It's the modern version of the keyboard player who didn't match their patches.
Yeah.
It's just like you had one job.
It's actually worse because Joe just used the word normalizing. In most DAWs, normalizing just normalizes to the loudest peak in any cut, which is not a useful metric. They need to make the audio sound the same level.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care what the, you know, and if that means you got to limit those peaks, then do it. But
Well, and I don't
just running things through the normalizer in a DAW does not solve that problem.
Although at a certain level, it would be a freaking good start. But I agree with everybody's pet peeve. But no, I guess the other thing for me is, like, we have QLab playback people. Like, okay, so if that's literally the only thing, because I do that on top of several other things on my gigs.
I can press a space bar.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like,
you're hired.
If this is your only job, like, I respect that. Like, you manage to market yourself in a way that pushing, you know, hey, there are DJs that are making gajillions of dollars playing their playlist and dancing around behind a table. Who am I to judge? But yeah, if that's your gig, like, yeah, you know, if it's got video involved, make sure the videos, like, are all in the same format and all work and all click together. If it's got audio, like, can, you know, loudness meters exists. Uline loudness, you can put it on there and, like, literally put your files in it. It'll tell you what the differences are. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the times it is video that's you know, playing back tracks that they're getting last minute stingers, bumpers, etc. You know, hey, we had to edit this content last minute and here it is. And instead of queuing it up and getting an idea of what they're going to feed me for this commercial break, it's like, here you go.
Switcher transition effects.
Yeah, take this.
Oh man.
Sure.
Switcher transition effects. Talk about one that can sneak up on you in live broadcast that's including content that's being streamed. Talk about that going out into an audience where there's a slight little grumble on one, and the next one is World War III. Wow.
Yeah, and I've got a client right now that, for complicated reasons, the stingers, the transitions are after my console, which is even worse because then I literally don't have control over them. They're in the switcher, so anyway. It doesn't matter why, but it's for technical reasons. That's the way it is. And then I get yelled at for exactly that because they throw one in at the last second and it's like, and then that they're yelling at me. They're like, what was that? I'm like, what? I don't even know. Like, I didn't even hear it. It's not coming from
my meters never moved an inch. It wasn't
right. Not me.
I knew a guy who was a Broadway sound designer, and he was doing a play with Richard Foreman as the director. And in the middle of it, there was a tape cue, which was the sound of a tape cue gone awry. It was
I love everything about this.
It was like
already.
a tape machine that took off in high speed mode. And he quit the job. He quit the show because he said he would not play that cue. It's I'm not going to play a cue that makes me look like an asshole.
The noise is off of audio.
Interesting.
Well, it would be like us playing basically feedback intentionally. Like, no, I'm not doing that unless there's no, because everyone's going to turn around and look at me, and how am I going to tell them that no, it's part of the show? Like, they walked up to the microphone and I was supposed to play, they were supposed to tap on it and I was supposed to play the wee sound. Yeah, I hear that.
I know of monitor engineers who have on their laptops files with all those kind of weird feedback frequencies on, and if somebody's bugging them in the band, they'll stick them in their mix.
I worked with a keyboard player.
I've heard story of trolling like this.
Sound.
The stories I've heard of trolling using those sounds usually come from people outside audio. So it's a lighting guy who hooks something up into a speaker nearby where audio is operating, and it'll have some sort of constant noise going out, or the feedback effect of some kind. That's the trolling I've heard of that involves these sound effects.
I know that you work with a sound.
Lights.
I know, John. I know you work with a lighting designer who might do that.
He's probably not watching.
No, probably not.
Not yet.
Let's see. Could be.
I had
No, he would do it. He just wouldn't do it to me. I'm not sure what he'll do, but
I had an incident a few years back with a now retired stagehand who figured out that if he went and got this one glass out of the cabinet backstage and filled it with just a little bit of water, and if he stood in the wing of the concert hall at the Kennedy Center, it would carry out into the house, out to front of house where we were sitting with the system muted, and just suddenly we'd hear a little rising feedback, and we'd panic and go for all the faders and realize, hey, the system's off. Like, why are we? And then we'd come and find him off in the wing and
Talking about background noise, one of the things that's driving me crazy lately is young people who love to put their phones on some sort of music and put it in their back pocket while they're working. I don't even know what that is. Like, why on earth they're doing this? And it's so annoying.
That's actually another pet peeve of mine. Fortunately, I don't do load-ins anymore. But when the crew wants you to play music during the entire frickin' load-in, I don't want.
The answer is no. Straight up won't do it.
Do not want music playing all day while I'm working.
And you got to talk about safety. You got to be able to talk to people.
Yeah.
I just don't understand this idea that you want to have this background noise going all the time. It's already noisy enough.
Here in DC, within the union venues, we are pretty adamantly pushing against anyone walking around with a Bluetooth speaker or playing music or even having earbuds in, because it's too much of a distraction. And we have too many people who aren't paying attention around forklifts and are even just talking to other people and not paying attention, not to mention music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have gotten hit in the head by at least one running chain when I was in my 20s if I had been rolling around with freaking AirPods in my ears all the time.
Also, carrying around that record player would be
well, there's
dragging that guitar
and you had to stop and crank it up every 5 minutes.
And you never knew when the wax cylinder would fall off and smash on the floor.
You kids nowadays, you don't understand, man.
As Joe was talking about not unnormalized stuff, it made me think of a sort of a bigger problem of unpreparedness when it's unnecessary, and people just not being organized for no reason at all. Somebody who doesn't want to advance a show, or somebody doesn't want to prepare something ahead of time because they were just busy or they didn't get around to it. And then it's a big rush at the last minute. That stuff drives me nuts. If it's an emergency and there's a big change, there's some problem, no problem. But if they had lots of time to get it together and get their shit in, get their stuff in order, there's no reason. It frustrates me when they could have had it together. And sometimes when I'm working for somebody and I know that they could have talked to the band or could have talked to the performer and gotten some of this information ahead of time, and they don't, you just why didn't you bother? It would have made everybody's day a lot easier.
I feel very like the presenters that bring their graphics to the graphic operator at 5 minutes before they're supposed to walk out on the stage. Yeah,
right. And then want to edit it just before they go on stage
because they were so busy.
Yeah, I feel very blessed that throughout my career I worked with people who did pre-production way in advance. That we spent a lot of time. I mean, unfortunately, I had a lot of unbillable hours doing pre-production, but we were always prepared. Now that I'm sort of on a house gig, executives come in all the time with last minute changes, and fortunately it doesn't impact me a hell of a lot, but the people doing video and graphics, it's killing them. I'm just pushing faders. It's not that big a deal. When it's not
necessary, this is the thing. When a phone call would have arranged everything, it drives me nuts when people don't bother to do that.
I'd like to share
I wasn't getting paid for that phone call. Come on.
My pet peeve is another facet of that same one, I think, but it's a little hypocritical, and it's the pet peeve where you inadvertently and unfortunately end up training a production group to get to your issues last, very late in the chain, because you've been able to pull out the situation from an emergency, like a sudden rush. You've been able to succeed in that rush so many times. They're just like, we don't even, you train them into giving you the worst situation for the last consideration on the totem pole, basically. And that's, it's a pet peeve, but it's my own fault, by being able to save the gig at the last second and without, training people to understand that has to be ingratiated. It has to be involved, and you have to do it as the entire pre-production flow, where audio is not, included enough. So it's my own fault. So I don't know if that can really be a pet peeve, but it's not good.
It's valid. It's definitely, because you're right. The show must go on can also cause us to train people to do, I've somebody's just now said the PowerPoint thing or the slides thing or whatever. And I've definitely seen that progression in doing corporate stuff for the last 20 years of just later and later and later and later and later and later, because you can, because you can load the graphics fast enough, because the thing that's hit me is presenters walking in 35 minutes into the show and saying, I want the Rocky theme for my play on in 4 minutes. And, the show caller just like, okay, we need the Rocky play on for Ed Smith. And I'm like,
yes, but then we do it. And then
we do
a whole generation, a whole generation of people who are going to come to production go up thinking, well, they can do it. So
right. And I've in fact, I've tried
self-fulfilling prophecy.
I've tried to kind of come off of that some because, because of exactly that, because I've realized that the more you do, like, no matter how much you save the day, then you've now set a baseline for, that's just the way you do it. And it's like, no, you don't understand. It's a miracle that worked. Oh, so miracles are the baseline now. Okay. So then, yeah.
But on the same time, it's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to suddenly save the day.
No, it's much more fun to say no. It's much more fun to say no. Trust me.
See, now you can.
I've done it a couple of times. People come to me and I just go, no, I'm not doing it.
I learned how to. But that's the internal conflict, because it's fun to be able to suddenly do. Oh yeah, Rocky theme right here, and also to be able to go, what's a Rocky theme? You know, it's good to be able. It's a conflict, internal conflict, to be able to go both ways with it.
At least
Yeah, when did you send me that file?
What they wanted. So I'm constantly getting, hey, play some rock walk up for this person, or hey, do you have something for Jerry? Like, who the fuck is Jerry?
Right. Yeah, we need
Jerry
something
classic rock. Like, yeah.
Do you have some Drake? And it's like, do you not see me? Do I look like I listen to Drake constantly? Can you just do some Drake for us? I'm like, sorry, old.
Mhm.
I wasn't, even when I was listening to the pop music, I wasn't listening to the pop music. I really don't listen to the pop music now. The one I had fairly recently, they said they wanted, I don't remember the song. It was like, okay, we want this. So I boom, 45 seconds. It was before the show. And then I just but it was like 4 minutes before doors. And I play it. And it is literally just the F-bomb 47 times in a row with an occasional article thrown in between just for emphasis. And they're like, what are you doing? You can't play that. I'm like, that's literally the song. That's all there is. Well, is there an edited version? Well, I've got a tone generator on my console. So it will just be beep. That's it.
I will say, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just 1 second, Joe. Let's hear from Mike and then Clive, because we haven't had a chance before we run out of time here.
And we haven't even let Pete know what the question is.
Oh, Pete's not allowed. He came in late. He can sit there separate.
What you guys are talking about, it's 10 times worse than house of worship gigs. You know, when you're doing a service, you know, you'll get people coming up 30 seconds before. Hey, I've got this slide deck. But anyway, I have my.
You're not allowed to
peeve.
swear, so you can't tell them off.
Yeah, exactly. But my peeve is vocals. When I hear too much low end and the vocals like 400 to 800 way up, you know, and it sounds like someone talking in a cardboard box. That just kills me.
Well, it's
the perfect rap sound. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's usually so easily solved too. And you just like,
can I get that for you? I mean, you mind?
I'm surprised nobody.
I'm
surprised you're not coupling that with the hand on the mic sound.
That's always a good
one. Yeah.
Because they're cousins.
Yeah, right. I was listening to a band, one of my favorite bands, National Act, and the whole time it was bad. I mean, just because of too much low end, and I'm like, come on, if I can fix it, come on, you should be able to.
Can't you hear that? Can you hear that? Can you not hear that?
Can you not hear that? Well, I know, especially when I was younger. Now I am the old guy, but especially when I was younger, I would system engineer for a lot of acts that came through. And, you know, if I was getting an ice pick to the forehead, I would look over and generally the road dog was like 63 and had been like on the road with so-and-so for 42 years. And it's like, so JBL has removed a section of your hearing for you. And that's cool. Like it's surgically been removed for you. And now you just are going to try to surgically remove it for all of the rest of us so that we hear the same thing you do.
But everybody in the band is as deaf as he is. So when they come out front and listen, they go, it sounds perfect.
Yep.
Maynard Ferguson. You don't want to walk. You didn't want to walk near his monitors.
I can imagine.
Oh man, we've all definitely got, well, all of us PA people anyway, definitely have a few. And it's funny because oftentimes it's not the folks that you would have necessarily expected. And then, I sat in Elton John's chair and said 1, 2 into his microphone and ran away so fast. I was like, my ears are still ringing just from going, hey, what whole
holy crap. Yeah. Neil Sedaka, same thing.
Yes. We haven't
Darryl
Clive.
Hall.
What do you have to
Darryl
say?
Hall. I watched 3 monitor engineers get fired off the tour I was on, doing another band on the same tour, because there was no human could generate the volume he was asking for on stage.
Oh
I mean, we're going to drop names, but I mean,
yeah. Well, and I will say, at the risk of turning it into, let's talk about all of the famous people that drive us. There's another pet peeve. We'll have a different show that's like,
right. We need to have that show.
Famous pet peeves that you're willing to talk about because maybe they're not alive anymore. Because that's sometimes the best. You get to a certain age and it's like, okay, I've got stories, and thankfully they're not. They're either not around to blackball me, or they're not around to punch me in the face or whatever.
Yeah, I'm no longer afraid of getting blackballed.
Yeah, at a certain point.
Okay, I got a pet peeve.
Go, Clive.
Go.
I'm a front of house mixer. That's what I do just about all the time. And one of the things that just drives me bat nuts is people standing 2 feet behind me in the middle of a show having a loud conversation.
Right.
And I usually turn around and tell them to piss right off. But sometimes you can't do that if it's the artist's spouse and his drunk friends, or the management company, or it just drives me to distraction. And it's probably because I work with acts that are fairly quiet. If it was a loud band, it wouldn't matter, but that drives me nuts. So that's one of them. And I have a second one I want to bring up, which is, again, I'm fortunate to have to deal with a different PA every day in a different theater. And I can't tell you how many times I've walked in and somebody's gone, oh, it was tuned by Bob and it's perfect. And you look at it and you go, no, Bob would not hang it like that. And it certainly wouldn't sound like this. And then you ask a few questions of the locals and they go, oh yeah, well, there's a guy who he's on the crew and he works for the local JBL rep and he tunes it. Yeah, thanks. And that usually means your job is going to be that much harder, because you're going to have to pretty much take the whole thing apart and retune the whole damn piece by piece, to make your gig work that day.
It's always harder to use somebody else's gear like that. And we tour with our own rig and get these arguments. Oh, we've got a perfectly good PA in here, but you don't understand. It's going to take twice as long for me to get that to work and fix it, compared to we just hang our own stuff. We know it's working. We know it's perfectly fine. And it's just, it's funny how people just think what they have in house is great, and it's so rare that it actually is correct. It's just, to me, it's shocking that it's not as good as
it's gotten better over the last few years, because the manufacturers sell complete packages. So the whole DSP, amplification, cabling, racks, speaker boxes, they're all to a manufacturer's spec. So it has gotten better, but people still hang them in the wrong place and they pull them up and down every day and plug them in wrong. It happens,
I agree. Super annoying.
And the other thing is that
no, only 2 pet peeves.
Okay. I wasn't gonna. It was actually just a corollary. That's all. There goes another word.
Corollary. So my pet peeve is when people not from my country say words in ways I don't understand. That is my pet peeve. No, please, Clive. Please give us our corollary. I can't say it. Corollary.
Now you've distracted me enough. I don't even remember. I'll come back on it.
But he did mean to say corollary.
Coronary.
Yeah,
coronary.
Exactly.
Coronary.
So Brian, do we actually have time for the new people to talk, or should we just?
I was not. Kate was pre-cleared, which is why Kate got to sneak in, and then Pete was just there, and I accidentally.
Do they even know what we're talking about, or we just sound like we're just complaining?
And which I think is why. So Kate brought a pet. So apparently she already knows what the topic is. But yes, do either of you have an audio pet peeve that you would love to share?
I have many.
Well, you can only go with 2 and a corollary. So
Okay.
2 or 1 and a coronary.
I'll keep it short since we're short on time. I think my number 1 pet peeve, I work for a company, and our salespeople will come up to us from time to time and say, need a sound system. It's for 500 people. It's for 1,000 people. It's for 10,000 people. No information about the size and shape of the audience. Are they standing? Are they sitting? Is it, theater style? Nothing. They're like, need a quote. We need it today. I'm like, this is never going to be accurate. I mean, and it's been the same way 10 years. I'm sure in 10 years, it'll be the same. 20 years, it'll be the same. It'll never change.
Do they also never give you information about what the PA is going to be amplifying? Because
it's
spoken word, classical death metal. I mean,
it's 50 grand a week. If you give me some details, we might be able to change that.
You start out with a really high number and go, here's what it is.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. I'm like, I don't, and I try to explain to people every time, and still it never changes. I have no high hopes that in 40 years it will change. I will be retiring and it'll still be like this. So that's my biggest pet peeve in audio.
That's a good one. And I can tell you, I suspect that I'm a couple more decades farther down I can assure you that it was exactly the same. And it has not, I've seen.
You had it at salespeople.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. My pet peeve is salespeople. Speaking of salespeople, Pete Wiejaczka.
I'm not a salesperson.
I knew he would instantly get defensive, which is why I'd said that.
Nope, I thought you meant
not even close. Audio pet peeve. Let's see here. All right, so an audio one would be that people think that they're smarter than the manufacturers, and that seems to be rampant right now. And it was rampant before, but less so because you had to be smarter than the manufacturers to put all the stuff together. But now, as Clive said, they have it so dialed, all these systems are much better, and they've put a lot of R&D in them, and people still think that they know better than what the manufacturer, and it's consoles, it's PA systems, it's intercom systems, it's all the things. And so that's number 1. And then number 2 would be for the industry, and it's just laziness. People not caring is pretty bad. And post-COVID, with people overworked, it's worse. I feel like maybe not by choice either, but that would be my 2.
Little does Pete know how tomorrow's going to go.
Something. Yeah, Joe filled us in a little bit about, and of course I have a better understanding of what this means, but that you may have poor weather to go with your 3 trucks going into
I understand
one door or whatever it is. All right, we're at about an hour, and so I feel like we've all whined sufficiently. I don't even think I think I just said me too to a bunch of people. I don't think I actually had a specific one.
I think you're right about that.
But it
needs to be corrected.
Oh man. This my biggest pet peeve. This is actually a good one to wrap up, and I have to explain it. My biggest pet peeve is stupid problems. Now, what I mean by stupid problems is you're in the midst of configuring some very difficult, complicated system with many, many moving parts, and it's networking this and it's that and whatever, and you just have to replug a thing or whatever, and you reach into the rack and you can't get your finger quite far enough in to quite turn the XLR to get it into the plug. Like, you know which one it has to go into. It's in your hand. The rack thing is right there. There's no intelligence to solving this problem. And yet you're going to spend 30 minutes because you can't figure out how to get the stupid, those literally, like in life, those are probably my biggest, lately it's manifesting itself in my little room here because I've got a bunch of cameras that use micro HDMI cables. Once you pull that out, it's going to take you 20 minutes to put it back in. You can try to do it 1 second after you pull it. You can literally go bink and try to push it. No, it's going to be 20 minutes and you're going to have to pull the thing off and get a light. And so that's my pet peeve in a nutshell. And it's like, it's kind of a joke, but also kind of serious. Like, it just makes me crazy when I'm literally solving world hunger and world peace, and I can't get the freaking XLR to quite made up right because I can't get my hand in the slot.
Yeah. You know how they made those tools because video had such high density patch panels.
Right.
They made
BNC
tools
thing.
to put BNCs into these high density patch panels.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to make a tool that'll put an XLR into a high density patch panel.
Well, I need
stop
a
making racks
one of
so
those.
tight. Stop making them so dense. Like,
Right.
give us some room.
well, and since I'm ranting about micro HDMI cables, like a micro HDMI cable and a micro USB are freaking identical. I'm sorry, unless you look under a microscope, they're freaking identical, but
That's the one, man.
they're not, anyway. But yeah, so they need a trumpeter tool for the XLR. Anyway, we're at about an hour, which is about perfect, because any longer than that, and people just say, why do you do this show? Why is it so long? And I get complaints and emails, and I don't want to hear that. So thanks to all of my friends and guests for joining us on this fabulous Saturday night's version of the Audio Opinion Show. Thank you to my friend Andy Broughton for co-hosting with me, and for some great conversations from some of my newest and oldest friends. I think with that, we'll wave goodbye, and I'll ask Andy Broughton to roll that fabulous bean footage.
Yeah, well, you know, that's like just your opinion, man.